Welcome to Association Chat, and online discussion where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm the host of Association Chat, Kiki L'Italienne, and before we get too settled, I'd encourage you to take a second and hit like and subscribe, or just leave a little comment, something to show all of the algorithm gods that you enjoy watching or hearing this kind of information, and will receive more content like it. It actually really makes a difference. So I just wanted to break in there and say that little bit before we get started. Now that I've said my bit, for this episode, we are actually going to talk about something that is super important. It's something that I deal with all the time in my work. It's something that I know that you're thinking about in your work. And we're going to talk about what really goes into using technology to enhance and foster association relationships. And what we're talking about is, how do we empower associations and association members? It's not like if you build it, they will come kind of deal. We've all figured that out. So what we thought we would do today is talk a little bit about what does work. We want to talk about the challenges and the opportunities for how associations can leverage technology to create deeper connections. Now, to help us explore all of that, I want to welcome to the show a very special guest, Mark Wallach. He's the CEO Emeritus of Engagement Mobile Strategies. Everyone loves this man, and I do too. So here we go. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Kiki. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I am so glad that you're here. And I see already we have someone commenting, looking forward to this topic. Carlos, I love you too. I'm so glad to see you. We are too. We are very excited to talk about this. I was talking with Mark just last week, and it was like, I have to get you on the show. We have to talk a little bit more about this. He was, Mark, you were saying some things that I thought were really important for people to hear. And so let's talk a little bit about engagement mobile strategies. Now, this is your business and how it aligns with today's needs for associations.
Right. And engagement mobile strategies, our mission really is to help thousands of associations engage, obtain potential new, and retain existing members. And we do it primarily with technologies and mobile strategies in a way that is simple to execute and understand. You see, we understand that there's some real generational shifts happening in membership where people like me are not sticking around much anymore. So membership's kind of atrophying. And to stay current, we need to adopt tools that'll meet the potential members where they are and how they want to be approached. And so that's what we're doing. We're helping to eliminate the fear association executives have with new approaches. We're doing consultation, research, content, technology selection, any way we can help you in that regard.
Yeah. And the thing is that I think it's there's no chance of oversaturation in this market. I think what you're doing is great work, because all the time, like I said before, I am running into organizations that just seem to keep hitting they get themselves into a rut, or they run into a challenge. And the thing that I hear most often, Mark, and I'm sure you hear it too, is that it's the technology that's not working. And the thing that is such a challenge when you're working with some of these wonderful tools, we have some amazing, it's mind-blowing how many wonderful tools we have that can help us to do so much to connect people today. But it's not always the tools, is it? It's a lot of times it's something else. It's like the strategy. It's like the people that go into it. So what do you see? And I know that this is like picking your favorite children, but like, what do you see as the most like potent, the strongest technological tools that associations can use today to boost member engagement? It's a tough question.
Well, no, that is a tough question. And for me, I see mobile technologies being the most potent tools. That includes mobile apps, both event and year-round engagement apps.
Mm,
But it also includes things beyond that that are leveraging their existing technologies that are mobile responsive, such as their CMS, LMS, and AMS. Um, I also think it includes SEO, which we've not done a good job of,
mhm.
because now, and I would not be surprised if everybody on this call has within arm's reach a mobile device. And whenever they want something now, they say, "Hey Google" or "Hey Siri." And if you're not in the top three of SEO, your member is going to a third party, a competitor, whether it's a corporation or another association, but somebody that's going to monetize them. So SEO has become extremely important tool, as well as social media such as TikTok and Instagram. So um, I think of it as, you know, it's not just your grandmother's Facebook anymore. We need to start going after those newer, younger members to replace the people like me that are dropping off.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true, and I think that, it's really tempting for someone who, especially if you put a little bit of effort into trying to devote some resources. A lot of times people will spend, organizations will put a lot of money into a particular tool or a suite of tools, and they'll think, okay, I invested, I got this tool on board. I have, I've plugged our members in. I've said, here you go. Here it is. And they're not talking. That's on them. Right. And they think that it's just for some reason their members are different, or that they don't work, or that they're just not interested in connecting the same way. But it's just not the case, is it?
No, no, it isn't. And I think a lot of it goes straight to the fact that that and I can also talk about the well, let me take a step back. I I see that consultants and vendors need to step up just as much as the associations, um, and that we could all be doing a better job in identifying an organization's goals and how to meet those goals. Uh,
Ooh, ooh.
because I've heard a lot of people come to me over the last 5 years and say, my executive director or my CEO says, we need a mobile app.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that most organizations at some point in their journey will need a mobile app as technology happens. But we haven't stopped to say, why do you need that mobile app? What are we trying to accomplish? And we may find that we already have some existing technologies in place with the right guidance we could leverage to achieve that goal. Uh, I've mentioned it already a couple times, but you don't need a mobile app to send me a direct mail piece, which I am fond of because of my generation. However, if you're trying to get a millennial, you might want to have a digital strategy to reach them that includes how do we get that Google or Siri to identify your web page when they ask
Mm-hmm.
that question. And then that Gen Z individual, and by the way, I have one in my home. She's a GW graduate student, so I'm very cognizant of what Gen Z does. They want to do something on an app. So who are you trying to get? And then how do you want to get them? And so we have great technologies out there. Most organizations have more technology, a deeper stack than what they need, and they're not leveraging it because they're not applying it to their goals and what the outcomes are. And one more thing, and I hate to go on, but in addition to not establishing our goals, we're not very good up front establishing what does success look like.
I love that you said this, because this isn't this, I just want all of us to take a collective breath and think of the most recent time you were sitting at a table, probably with a consultant who is saying, what does success look like? Because we're always driving toward that, aren't we, Mark? We're
Right.
always trying to drive toward that. And yet, even with that discussion that happens, somehow I feel like that gets lost along the way. It's we pull away from that. Why do you think that is?
I think because we have many ways that's come about. One is, as consultants and as vendors in the space, we need to do a better job of creating relationships and not being transactional.
Mhm.
Um, and I think we can take. I think we can take ownership of that. It's that we are part of this association ecosystem, and therefore we need to give back into that association ecosystem to create the relationships that they need. Additionally, I'm I'm known for knowing everybody. Well, we as vendors or as consultants need to say, "Hey, that's not me, but that might be Carlos with his new AMS, or that might be Misha. I'm picking on the ones
Yes.
answering, but Misha, who is looking at web apps, it can be all sorts of things. But we need to start being a resource to the community. Now, once you have that trust and know who you can go to for everything and will direct you properly, then you can start focusing on not what's the transaction, what do I need to buy, but starting every one of those sessions with what's today's goal and
Mhm.
what will success mean if we accomplish that goal, and then we monitor it and continue. So it's really, for me, it comes down to relationships and ongoing relationships.
Oh, oh, oh. See, now you are singing from the same songbook that I am, because you just said the thing that I love to talk about. And this is the thing that I thought, okay, we've got to have this conversation with everyone, right? Because it's the human part. It's that relationship building piece that is the piece that I really think it's the critical part that people find value in, that is sort of this magical. It seems magical sometimes to people because they think it's really hard to achieve, but it's really human relationships 101. Like, what is it that helps us connect with each other and get value out of that connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me a little bit about this human touch, this personal connection that's a part of work like this.
Sure, sure. And a lot of times that's thought of as, when we integrate technology, how do we make sure that human touch isn't lost? So, and I really love this question, because so often we think about starting something new that we think it means we have to stop doing what we've been doing all along. And that could not be further from the truth. For example, adding a mobile strategy utilizing an app, SEO, and some social media does not mean we discontinue the human touch we're giving now. It also does not mean that we have to take on more effort necessarily, because we can go back to that goal setting, what measurement of success, and look at the other channels we're doing. If it
Mm,
turns out if it turns out we're no longer trying to reach out to baby boomers, maybe we can pull back on the direct mail, which still has not died, and reallocate those resources into this other area. So we're just shifting where our energy goes. So I'm a big believer that we should constantly evaluate our measure our success with regards to that. Now, let me give you an example of what I see is a way to keep human touch. And this is just one
mhm.
example of literally uh, tens of and to hundreds. I've been meeting with TikTok recently, and I know you cannot believe that I am almost TikTok famous with about 800 views total. Um,
I can
but I've been,
believe this. I
yeah,
mean, I
eight,
can believe this about you.
yeah,
Yes.
800 views for me is viral. It's not for anyone else. But I've been meeting with them, and um, they have a nonprofit rep dedicated to helping organizations get the maximum benefit from their TikTok accounts, whether it's member acquisition, brand awareness, etc. I also know that video is a great medium to attract members of Gen
Mm.
Z. As a matter of fact, let me just share something real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please do.
Right. My computer. And
This is, by the way, for those who are watching live, I just want you to know that, like, this is someone who feels very comfortable with their tech, is when they're able to just, "Yeah, we're doing this live. Let's just go ahead and share. I'm sharing this with all these people." We didn't talk about this ahead of time, so.
yeah, screen sharing. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I got the right one. Uh, no. Oh, I see. By the way, I used some assistive technology because my hand, so it was blocking what I needed to see my keyboard on the screen. All right, let me show you this. Can you
Okay,
see? Can you see a typical Gen Zer on their mobile device?
got
Well,
it.
okay. Well, according to Data AI, Gen Z is a mobile, social, and video first generation. So, again, I'm not saying that all of your channels need to be to Gen Z. I'm saying that if your goal is to attract Gen Z, then we need to be doing mobile, video, and social first type things. So, what if you had your existing members tell their stories in a video, and then you presented it in a social and video first way to attract these new members? And if you're concerned how to create that content, there's lots of great companies in the association space that can help you, such as Michael Hoffman at Gather Voices,
Oh, yeah.
does great stuff. And it's easy for organizations to participate. And I was speaking with him the other day, actually, and he was telling me that by using an association's greatest assets, which are their people, their members, organizations are creating deeper connections using video. So I think ultimately, when it comes to creating that personal touch, that actually implementing these strategies together, that you can create greater personalized human touch through the technology than you might already be doing.
I mean, I 100% agree. A lot of the frustration comes from looking at, especially with our conversations about AI lately, and figuring out how we're finding out more and more information about ways that we can customize to our members and give them and speak to them and do all of these great things in so many advanced customized ways. And yet, why are associations continuing to get it wrong? A lot of times they're struggling to seem relevant or to strike that chord or to connect their members with other members. And it does seem to be that even though they have a lot of these tools, they still struggle. So, I mean, along with the arching challenge of maybe really thinking through what success looks like, what are some of the other challenges that you've run into when you've been working with organizations that they may have a great tech stack, but it just isn't seeming to work for them when it comes to engagement?
Well, well, as we talked about already, some poor goal setting and lack of markers for success. I really see the most uh, prevalent challenge is fear. Um,
Mm, mhm.
you know, I don't care what size your organization is. Associations are typically short-staffed. That means those that are charged with executing a new technology-driven engagement strategy. Boy, is that a lot of words. That
Yeah,
alone is scary. Technology-driven engagement strategy. Well, I'd
I
be
like the way
afraid
you
of that
said it.
too. You know,
Yeah.
and not only are they afraid of it, but they're afraid of, can I execute it? Do I understand it?
Mhm.
What if it fails? Will it reflect on me as the professional? Uh, Quite frankly, a lot of my work has not been around finding the best solution, but
Mhm.
finding the best process to make the decision. So if the decision fails, Nobody's on a hot seat because they can show that they went through the due diligence to make the decision. It just wasn't right for us.
Right.
Okay. So let's take away that fear and put them in a position where they have comfort. Now, we've talked about some of those things. I mean, I'm less afraid of you because we have a relationship. We know people in common. We have trust. You've been here in the space for more than a decade. I've been in the space for more than a decade. So we can take a lot of that fear away, relying on each other. And I think associations need to start asking for references, not only of other associations, but other vendors. And
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that, Kiki, is, you know, is Mark reputable? Can you give me 3 other vendors in the space that I would know that could talk to that? Not just 3 other associations that are your clients, because I'm going to give you the good clients, and the
Yeah,
vendor's not going to risk their reputation.
that's true. That's
Okay.
true.
But we're such a tight knit, small community that if anybody's been here a decade or more, you know who they are, you know how to trust them, and they should know you. And if they don't, are you being a contributor to the community? Are you being passionate about your products and services? Are you bringing real value anyways?
Could it be too tight knit? Could it be okay, and I'm just lobbing this back over to
I
you to
love it.
play with. But could it be that we're too tight knit? I know that there are those who have, it could be on the negative side of it. Someone coming in to start up, something new. They're a vendor in this space, and they haven't really been in the association market for a long time, and they just don't get us. Is the vibe, right? But on the other hand, with a lot of technology changing quickly and things like that, maybe new is better. Maybe we need somebody with an outside perspective. I know you've heard all these arguments before, but what are your thoughts on that?
I think I think that you're correct. It is very tight knit.
Yeah.
I remember people after being in the space 3 years telling me, next year we're going to let you submit an RFP
I know.
because because we wanted to know that you were going to be here after a couple of years. All right. Um,
Hmm.
so in that regard, at the same time, though, I think new players to the industry need to step up, get involved, and
Oh, yeah.
interact as well. And
Yeah.
then possibly when there are synergies between consultants and other vendors or people in the industry, maybe we can have someone like you vet someone like me that might be new, and then together we can talk about what value we bring.
Right.
And
Right.
that comes back to relationships. It comes
Yeah.
back to being a community. So yes, we should welcome new people. We should invite them. We should let them stand on their first day in the community. But we want to see them come back, and we'd like to have them volunteer for something in the meantime.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do think it's really important to see that we have partners, and it does dance between people who will work for directly for associations, who will sometimes go and get involved as consultants, or they'll go and they'll work for a solutions provider, and then they'll jump back in. I mean, we have every variation in this community, and it actually can lead to a lot of, I think sometimes a lot of a feeling of disconnect. I was one of those people, right? I
Mhm.
started out working for associations, then went into consulting, worked for a little bit for a solutions provider, back to consulting. And so I feel like it's different to have been in those different roles and to had that interaction in the community from those different places, to see and feel what it feels like to play those different roles. And it's there are some nuances that unless you've done it, you really wouldn't understand. But it is a very interesting industry, and kind of difficult, I think, to wrap your mind around when you're new to it.
I agree. I agree. And
Yeah.
I think just like anything else, when you're new to something, just because you have the shiny new toy that's great for everybody, I still think you need to put the work in to develop the relationships,
Yeah.
and people might accept you quicker.
I agree with that. And I think, I mean, you're a great person to talk about that actually, because you're sort of known in the industry for having a personality where everyone likes you, very likable guy. Everyone, speaks very fondly of you. And I think, unfortunately, not everybody's like, I can't say the same for every single guest I've ever had on Association Chat. But I mean, you seem to do really well with human relationships. You're really great at relationship building. And so, what is it that you see as far as when you go in and start working with an organization, the types of questions that you're asking that might be a little bit different than, say, what someone else is asking? What are you seeing when you go in there? What is it that you think is different in your approach than maybe other people's approaches when it comes to understanding how to build engagement?
Um, well, I I think a couple of them are personality defects. I tend not to have a filter, and I'm really transparent. And a lot of it has to do with I have a very limited amount of energy due to some other reasons. So I really just want to focus on being authentic, and
Mm-hmm.
that really helps a lot. I think not only do we need to ask questions that are appropriate, we need to ask questions that are maybe more than a checkers type question, but of a chess or even a three level chess question. For example, I need an app. Why? Number one. Well,
Yeah.
to get more members. What type of members? Millennials. So the real goal here is
Yeah.
to get millennials. Do you want an app just to have an app, or do you think that app will get you more millennials? And just keep going with that. And then ultimately, you may find that they don't need an app right now. And by the
Mm-hmm.
way, I'm an app guy. I mean, I, I have hashtags on Twitter that use the word app guy and engaging
Yeah.
app guy. Okay, but it's taking them down a path that's finding a solution for them that may not be what they thought it initially was going to be, and possibly doesn't even have my agenda in place. And what I
Right.
mean by that is there have been many times where I've said, you know what, right now, this what I have to offer is not what you need. You need this. And I'll either help you with it, I'll introduce you to someone that can. But in your best interest, I would do it this way. And that's where trust gets built over time. And then they come back and they ask you over and over again, what do I do for this? I mean, there still is a book that was written in the 1990s. I know some of you weren't born then, uh, called Marketing to the Affluent. And
Hmm.
I loved that book because they said that your job was to become, it was not the referrals you get, but the referrals you give that make a difference. So they wanted their clients to call them, if they sold financial services, to call them for the best dry cleaner, the best Chinese food restaurant, and they knew everybody that was the best. Why? Because they wanted their clients calling them first. I want to
Wow.
be that resource where clients are calling me first, and I'll tell them where to get the best Chinese food in Boston, which I just had. If anybody wants to know, ask me.
I want to
Or
know. I actually want to know for real.
okay, yeah, it was the Dynasty in Chinatown. I'll get you the address.
Great.
Great dim sum, and by the way, their vegetable entree is to die for, and I'm a meat eater.
Very important. And I just want to say that while we got this great testimonial for this place that we've got to check out in Chinatown. we have this wonderful testimonial actually that comes from Facebook user, and I can't see the Facebook user's name, but they have a great story. He's great. He's talking about you. He's great at building relationships. I met him at an association event, I believe 20 years ago. And during that time, I was worried about being at a program, and my daughter was back at home having dental surgery. I mentioned that to him during our conversation. He reminded me of this years ago. For him to remember that after I had forgotten about it was awesome. And it speaks to his connectiveness to people. This man is awesome. And I mean,
I
that's
actually know who that
you know
is.
who it, oh wait, she said
That's
it
right.
herself. Yes,
It's
yes,
Amy.
yes.
Yeah.
So I
And
mean,
Amy's one of the best people in the space. We've got a lot of great people in this space. Some of
we
us are
do.
extroverted, some of us are introverted. We all provide such wonderful value, and as long as we're there to appreciate each other, acknowledge each other, and learn something about each other, ultimately we're going to make it so everybody can advance and make their organization advance. I mean, what a job it is. What a job we have where we help organizations help people at their core base needs, whether it's
Mhm.
doctors being better doctors, nurses being better nurses, assistive technology being more prevalent, whatever. I mean, we just help. The changes that we can make in people's lives are exponential.
Yeah. Well, I want to actually I want to go back to a comment that I saw a little bit earlier. And for those of you who are watching who aren't familiar with the fact that there's an audio version of this podcast, that's why I'm reading some of this stuff out, because if I'm not reading it out, the people who they're missing some of the comments that are happening. So, I want to go back to this comment that Misha had earlier. And Misha wrote, could it be because the tool is not a substitute for passion and professional conversations are not always the drivers of passionate engagement? Like, how passionate can you get about ink chemicals or warehouse wall insulation? And the reason I'm going back to that is because something you just said, you were talking about the fact how great it is that we can work in an industry where we have such a great impact and work with all kinds of these different people. And that is the thing I always come back to too, is that, there's an association, you hear it for everything. So, how powerful is it, no matter what role you have, that whoever you are, wherever you are, when you are supporting an association, you have an impact over an industry, a science, a profession, a group of people in a way that it is extraordinary. And so when our community comes together, we actually impact the world. And I'm not overselling it. It's just the way that it is. So it's actually a great responsibility. And it's why it's important for us to get some of this relationship building stuff right, because it's not just for you and me. It's not for Mark and me. It's for all of us to, we actually have this great impact, or can, when we get this stuff right. And that relationship building is critical. And I would say no matter whether it is about ink chemicals or warehouse wall insulation, it's humans, right? We're getting together human to human, and how can we help each other?
And just to get excited about warehouse wall insulation,
Yeah,
think
yeah,
about think
yeah.
about how clean the lungs are of the people working in those buildings, because the warehouse wall insulation made sure that they weren't breathing in these toxic pieces of glass. So
Yeah.
so you really can. There are ways to get excited about it if you're willing to be interested at first, and not
Mhm.
and walk in with an open mind and understand the needs. And the needs are, I need a new piece of technology. That's not the need. The need
Right.
is, I need a tool that'll help me affect X, Y, or Z. And it may be a
Ooh.
new piece of technology.
Yes, yes, yes. Note to self, I need to stop at this point and go back and get that right there, because that's really it. It's not that you need the app or the tool or whatever. It's that you need what that enables, what that creates, what that allows you to do, that connection, that
Mhm.
piece. All right. And I'm seeing over here, yes, Lauren had picked up on this thread at the most basic level. We all just want to be seen and heard. Absolutely. So the big news on the street, and I've been posting these different videos and stuff from ASAE annual. I hate that I didn't get a video of you talking about what you were hearing and what your big takeaway from ASAE annual was. But everybody was talking about AI, AI this, AI that, generative AI, ethics in AI, the future of the association industry in AI. And so it makes us think a lot about our data and about how it's being used and the role that it plays in all of our technology. And so, what role do you see data analytics playing in understanding and enhancing member engagement? How do you see associations effectively using that information that they're pulling? Because I know in a lot of cases, there's a lot of data available, but we're not always seeing it used maybe in the most effective way.
Well, there is a lot of data available, and we should be collecting it. And we
Hmm.
should be collecting it using tools that allow us to access it. So, for example, when you're looking at a technology, what data points does it allow you to grab? And can you transfer those data points to another tool? Why do we want to be able to transfer it to another tool? Because typically the technology that is gathering the data, that's creating that data, is not a tool that will help you to analyze that data. So we want to be
Hmm.
able to incorporate some analytical tools. So if you're buying a piece of technology today, whether it's mobile, whether it's AMS, LMS, CMS, can I download, upload? Does it have APIs where we can do integrations? Can I access that data? And even if I'm not ready to use all that data, I think of it as each association is a different level of financed police department. Let me give you an example. You know, Miami CSI had all the tools. They could check into everything. Maybe Mayberry RFD, a much smaller police department, just had Barney Fife and his one bullet.
Yeah.
But if you're a Mayberry and you're collecting the data as that ability to access data, and it becomes something that is easier, something that is
Mm.
more commonplace, now you have years of data that you can use to, when you're ready to start analyzing it, access it, and create some decisions out of it. The bottom line is we all do better in making decisions with the most information that we can digest,
Hmm.
and analytical tools allow us to digest large amounts of information in palpable bites, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that that's the thing that is such a challenge, not the thing. There's lots of things, but it's one of the challenging things. It's such a challenge for, organizations, associations to get right, is that we have all of these data points, but are we collecting the right ones? And what are we doing with them once we have them? And that leads me to my next question, which has to do with our favorite, worrying about the ethics of how we're using some of this data, plays into privacy and inclusivity. At this point, these privacy questions and the question about inclusivity and allowing us to make things more available to more people is such a big issue, because with the technology that we have available to us now, we know that the capabilities are there to do so much more than we've done in the past. So this must weigh heavy, right? On anyone that works in technology, no matter what your role. We're all trying to figure out, what kind of effect can I have in the role that I have, in seeing that that is something that that we care about people's privacy, that we're using our technology ethically, and that we're making things more available to people. What do you see about this when you're going into a project or you're working with an organization? What ethical considerations should be taken into account when you're using technology for member engagement?
It's a very important question. Both privacy and inclusivity are extremely important. I'm going to start with privacy because I'll get overly excited about inclusivity in a moment. But from a privacy standpoint, we need to look at technology vendors and how they choose to handle the data. Some important notes are, where are they keeping the data? For example, there are still vendors out there that use private servers. Well, that could be a risk. Are they housing it in very secure situations, such as maybe are they on AWS? Do they have redundancy? Do they have scalability? Do they have other protections in place? So we really need to look at how they're storing data.
Mm-hmm.
And we also need to see how data is being stored from your other systems. For example, going back to the app, many of the apps just take in name and email address because they're integrated with an AMS. So that makes it a very low risk technology if it's keeping a low profile or low risk amount of data. It doesn't have as much data as maybe your AMS might have. So you also need to see, where are my concentrations of data, and those are where I really need to put my security into. Now, inclusivity is a real priority for me, and it has a lot to do with my own disability as a result of ALS. For those that don't know, I look great from the shoulders up, but my hands don't work, and I use assistive technologies and whatnot. And I'm learning, because ALS I think it should be renamed to constant state of adaptation. I'm constantly having to personally adapt, and I'm learning that things that are supposedly accessible aren't accessible. So we really need to look at that inclusivity. We need to talk to organizations about how accessible their technologies are, such as their websites, their mobile apps. For example, I can now put an alt tag in just about all my social media posts. Who would have thought about that? Why? Because there are going to be people reading my social media posts that can't see the photo that I put in, but they'd like to know what that content is. That's accessibility. Are we doing that with our other technologies, especially in the association space? So there are a lot of tools that will ensure that you're providing accessibility to your members. They're not just ethical concerns. There are also some legal concerns. And without adequate privacy in this global society, you could be an organization that's facing things like GDPR compliance issues. So we look carefully at that when it comes to technology. Another issue might be that between 2017 and 2021, there were 10,700 digital accessibility lawsuits.
Gosh.
Which means that you could be sued by your membership by not being accessible at an equal way. So it's not just an ethical concern, it's a legal concern, but also, you know what? It's just good business for associations.
Yeah. And I know that you were talking about SEO before, and that's one of the things that I always found to be really interesting when looking at SEO is that, in case you ever thought that it wasn't good enough to rank number one or rank on the top page for first page for Google, it also behooves you to do this. It making your site more accessible and creating alt tags and all of that stuff is searchable. So it makes it so that it improves your SEO. So I love that you're like so into all of that because it all ties together.
Sure does. As we've talked about SEO a number of times to get in front of millennials and Gen Z, a number of the success criteria in the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also known as WCAG or WCAG, they are the global benchmarks for web accessibility, and they align with the SEO best practices. So like you just said, your site's going to be more enhanced. Also, one more topic on that. You know, I know that associations are losing older members, but what if you could serve that aging population? Disability increases as we age by 2030. Of those older than 65, they're going to make up 20% of the US population. So what if we made your sites or your technology accessible, and now you're retaining those older members for longer periods of time? I've got an 80-year-old parent and an 82-year-old parent. As long as they can continue to access things, they're going to create non-dues revenue, create dues revenue, and they're going to participate in your organization.
Right. Well, I mean, and I look at the trends with civic organizations, and civic organizations volunteerism goes up as people are retirement age because they feel like at that point they're able to give back. And so, why would you take people who have all of this experience networking? They've networked their entire lives. They've got, they've invested all this time and energy into a field, and at that point you're not going to serve them because why, like, so for the purposes of community, if you look at just human to human, there's a lot of good reason to figure out a way to keep those people engaged. So interesting things to be thinking about, that human part. I did see that our friend Misha asked another good question earlier. He said, look at our community. We're passionate about engagement and technology. ASAE has an app and tools and data and everything, yet there's little engagement outside of higher logic based collaborate. Any theories why that is? So, yeah, so it's interesting because, it's always fun to sort of poke at the Association for Associations, but it's the thing that we're all familiar with, where a lot of us are engaged there, right? And so it makes sense to reference that and say, well, what's going on with that? And that does play into a good question about member engagement, because certainly ASA is not alone in this sort of struggle. A lot of associations are in the same sort of position where there is opportunity to do more. But it's always this question of priority, of resources and time, and where are you going to invest your staff, your energy, maybe your technology development. How are you going to approach that? So I would just kind of toss that over to you, Mark, and say, like, with Misha's question, not specifically, or maybe about ASAE, but like for any organization where you see some engagement, but there's not really member engagement outside of one particular spot. What would your approach be to that?
Well, when it comes to adopting technology, and Misha had a comment about there's only one technology, even though they have all these things. And we don't even need to name the association, because I think it, as you said, it can apply to all of us.
Yeah.
The people at ASAE are really good humans, just like I'm a really good human, and both of us have made mistakes in our past. So, okay. But there really are a couple proven techniques I think we need to start adopting. And the first technique is a phrase that I've used my entire professional career, that the speed of the team is the speed of the leader. So if you're adopting or implementing a new technology, start by implementing it internally amongst your staff. Take a leadership role using it. So for that app that Misha was referencing, what if people started communicating through the app internally at ASE? What if they found ways to transfer information, create resources, and started using it as an example? I have always felt more comfortable when the person I'm working with is drinking their own Kool-Aid, so to speak. So if you want me to accept it as a member, if you want me to engage as a member, maybe you need to be demonstrating some leadership in regards to that. The other thing too, and you talked about resources and how do we do this. I've got a second phrase or philosophy, and that is you can't eat an elephant in one bite. It's okay to start with a few things. As a matter of fact, if you have too many things in that app for the first time, it overwhelms people. They don't know where to start. They don't know what the best tactic is. You might see the best place to start with this technology is in one section. I'm in another section, and neither the two shall meet because there was so much we could never get to each other. We could never
Oh,
engage.
yeah.
So start out small and then add, as people are using it, add the next level. That's the beauty of digital technology these days, and is that you can be so agile. You can make changes on the fly, literally, if you have to, and you can leverage your existing technology. So don't. I know people get concerned. Well, where am I going to get all this content? How am I going to make it possible for me to have new things? Well, you already have a CMS. You already have an LMS. You already have an AMS. And all of these tools will work together. That why don't we start exposing a little more over time? And then let's test it and measure it. These tools allow you to personalize content. In other words, Kiki, I can create a role or persona for you. And for Misha, I can create another role or persona. And then that role or persona that Misha has and all the Mishas have, they're going to get a certain type of content because we know something about them and they're going to get that. The Kiki role persona, they're going to get different content. The two of you could be sitting side by side using the same technology, but both using something that's important to you because you've segmented it. And this is just some really small ways to enter into that market. And of course, if you've got the president of all associations using it and their staffs using it, and then you're at the event. I mean, quite frankly, if you're using an app at an event and somebody comes up to the information booth, the best thing the information booth can do is pull out their phone, pull up the app, and answer the question right there because they're going to show the value. And now you're engaging them. And then after that event, what if you could turn it into year-round engagement because you have the app on their phone?
Yes.
I mean, I can get excited about a lot of this, but just let's show by leadership, and then let's not bite off more than we can chew.
Yeah, I love that. It's hard to do because we do have so many capabilities that we see that are available to us, and we say, "Oh my gosh, I could do all of this stuff." But it's one step in front, one foot in front of the other, one step at a time.
Right.
And I am just putting this out there for everyone who's listening, because no matter who you are, if you're working in technology and working with associations, I just want you to know that for all future training, I think of when I first started in the association space. And what I wanted was not to continue to be the coordinator that I was when I started, but I wanted to aspire to be more. And so my pathway, I want I want the capabilities to be built in as you all are figuring out how to do this for your associations. I want the capability for somebody to create the track that they want to be on, not necessarily the one that they're on at the time. So that they can design their aspirational experience so that I'm not necessarily reading the things that a coordinator would necessarily always be reading. I want to read the things that the director and then the vice president and then the president is reading. And so figure out, ways to incorporate those things that help your members develop when you can, if you can. This is one of those down the road things, but if you have the capabilities in there, career pathways are so important. Yes. So, and then Lauren had this great piece. Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we've talked about a whole lot, and I know we just have, 5 minutes left, and we haven't even gotten to all of the questions that I wanted to ask you for our conversation today. But there's a lot going on with emerging trends, a lot of things that we know that associations need to be prepared for in the future. But if you were to give one piece of advice to association leaders who are looking to innovate in the area of member engagement through technology, what would it be?
Well, first of all, I know everyone wants me to say chat GPT or AI, because it's the hottest thing out there. And I agree that at some point in our association journey, that associations should be looking at it. But right now, to be successful, I think associations need to look at what I call manageable emerging trends. And some associations are following these pretty well. And
Mhm.
basically, it's 3 points. Take a multi-channel approach to increasing your membership. You're not going to find me in TikTok, and you're not going to find Gen Z with a newsletter. So let's figure out how we're marketing to these various sectors and use a multi-channel approach. It also means that multi-channel means more than one. So if you got a great new trend, that doesn't mean you stop everything else,
Mhm.
which is sometimes we get so excited about the new shiny object that we forget the other things. Two, leverage your existing tools, whether it's your CMS, your LMS, your AMS. Your CMS is not just a website, it is actually a content management system. So there's all types of content that you could be driving through your different digital strategies that have nothing to do with your public website. And then I believe adopt mobile strategies. I contend that if you go anywhere these days, and everyone's head is down in their mobile phone. So either get a mobile app, social media, and I'm not just talking about your grandmother's Facebook anymore. The reason why our kids aren't on Facebook is because we got on it.
Mhm.
Um, so we need to figure out other things that might not be comfortable, and then SEO to compete against the Google and the Siri.
Yeah. Right. And I love it because those of you who are listening on audio, Carlos has been, thankfully, he's like capturing our 3 points here. And he just posted the adopt mobile strategies, your third point, Mark. So, I just have to say thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I knew when we caught up last week, and I heard that you were talking about and working on figuring out how to bridge these connections, how to create a more engaged membership, that it was something that would really speak to those people who are working in technology, working with associations, trying to solve these problems. Because whether we call it community, whether we call it engagement, it, the one thing we know for sure is that we're talking about humans. We're dealing with humans who have very human needs and very human wants. And we are in a position to create great change and affect great change in the world if we get it right. We've got to help people connect. So, you were the perfect person to have on
Thank
for
you.
this topic. Thank you so much. If people want to reach out to you, where's the best place for them to reach out to you?
The best place to reach out to me, and if you have your cell phone handy, because I talk about adopting mobile strategies, but if you have your cell phone handy, uh, you can click on this QR code.
Ooh,
And if you
there
have
we go.
questions, need advice, or just want to grab a cup of coffee and talk about mobile engagement, contact us through the QR code. If you're listening in, uh, you can email curious@engagementmobile.com or email me direct at mark@engagementmobile.com. And if you have to talk immediately, my cell phone number is 561-385-2323. And of course, you can always get a ton of content at engagementmobile.com.
All right, engagementmobile.com. I'm going to leave this up there for just a little bit longer so everyone can grab that information. But thank you so much. And I really hope that you'll come back and give us an update on everything that's going on with you and what's happening with Engagement Mobile, and just keep us posted on all the good stuff that you find out.
Thank you, Kiki. And I have to let you know, when I got in this space, I I was trying to learn and become a part of this space. And your contribution to the association space gave me great content, great insights, and continues to do so. So it it is an honor to be here with you, and I would welcome the opportunity to do it again.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna make me. I shouldn't have worn red if I turn red down here. Thank you so much for that. And it means a great deal coming from you. I really appreciate that. All right, friends. So thank you so much. I hope you got a lot out of that conversation. I hope you got as much as I did. I just absolutely adored having this conversation. It's one of my favorite topics. Great human, great person that was able to share his knowledge with all of you. And I know that if you have questions, if you want to reach out, obviously, he shared all kinds of different ways. So reach out to Mark and definitely go and check out his website so that you can get great content, because you're going to see that on a regular basis coming from him. And so, with that, I hope that you're going to stoke that curiosity and keep asking questions every day. Because why? Because, as Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.